Hello and welcome to Minter Dialogue, episode number 403. My name is Minter Dial and I'm your host for this podcast. This week's interview, the last for 2020, is with George Brontén. George is the founder and CEO of Membrain, the Sales Enablement CRM that makes it easy to execute your sales strategy. A lifelong entrepreneur with 20 years of experience in the software space and a passion for sales and marketing, with a life motto, don't settle for mainstream. George is always looking for new ways to achieve improved business results using innovative software, skills and processes. George is also the author of the book, Stop Killing Deals. In this conversation with George, we discuss the role and importance of storytelling and purpose in sales, the power of beauty and enjoyment, and many insights as to how to improve your sales function and CRM processes. You'll find all the show notes on minterdial.com. Please consider to drop in your rating and review, and don't forget to subscribe to catch all the future episodes if you like this one. Now for the show. George Brontén, great to have you on the show. You are piped in from just outside of Stockholm, Sweden. Is that not right?
That is correct. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm in Nacka, which is a bit east of Stockholm. Yeah, in my son's room here as well.
Lovely. Well, the good news is school is open.
Yes.
So, George, the fact that you're in Sweden is of course of great interest to me. And you are running a company based in Sweden, and you've written a book which I had the pleasure to listen to. I did it through audio. Stop Killing Deals, which you published in March 2020. So I'd like to hear how launching a book in the middle of a pandemic in Sweden is, and how that might be different than doing it in another country.
Good question. And also Stop Killing Deals was an interesting choice of words, which was also when I launched this, like you say, in the middle of the pandemic, was should I change the title? But I didn't. So yeah, it's been an interesting ride. One thing with the title that was negative though is that Google sometimes blocks ads if you have words like killing in it. I didn't know about that, so that's been kind of a bad experience. But otherwise, it's been good. I can't compare how it is to launch a book in Sweden compared to any other region because I've only tried it here. But it's really not released in Sweden. I mean, it's Amazon, right?
Of course.
They own this publishing space. What I've learned, it's been a very, very interesting. It's my first book, so I've learned a lot.
Congrats.
It's a book for sales leaders primarily, but also salespeople and CEOs and such. And everybody wanted it as an audiobook. I didn't realize that, so I published it as a book, and then everyone was asking about the audiobook. So the audiobook you listen to, I did that all by myself, which was really interesting when you're reading your own book.
Oh God, yes.
It's like you do it's so hard to read a book if you haven't sort of read it out loud professionally. It's not normally something you do. So yeah, it's been a fun experience. I think launching it was a good move. People have had time to read, maybe more than usual. So I think I can't complain. It's been a good experience so far.
Well, my implicit question was, are you getting to do book talks? That's what you usually do when you write a book. You get to go out and you sign books and you have people and you hug them and you talk to them.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, in Sweden, of course, getting close to people anyway is always
we don't
a challenge.
normally do that kind of thing, right?
Whoa!
Yeah, but I'm an introvert, so I hadn't even considered doing a physical book tour. So that's why I didn't understand what you were saying between the lines there.
Exactly. Well, of course, the lines being that Sweden has sort of has another flag that's flying in this pandemic, and personally, I salute the way the Swedes have gone around it. So, but I'm not going to get into a political discussion. So, I love, George, when you began the book, one of the things I really loved was that you started by sort of going with a mea culpa. Am I the problem? And I thought that was a really interesting way to start, because it sort of brought me into you as a person naturally is also helping that you were reading it. But talk us through that idea, because I think it's a really big idea for leaders to be able to be aware of how they know and when they become the problem, and then what to do. Because we're smart, we've done shit, but to have that willingness, the awareness and willingness to admit that seemed like a really big step. So talk us through what you did.
Yeah, so this was in my previous company that I founded called Upstream, and we did a major shift in what we sold. We basically made our resellers into our customers, and we were selling them a new type of platform for automation so that they could basically change their business model. What we were really selling, not just a product, but a product that allowed them to charge for IT when IT works instead of charging when reactively fixing what breaks. So in this whole journey with selling this product or solution and change, I hired a lot of salespeople when I wanted to scale this up, and I just failed at it. So I was hiring and firing a lot, and it was costing me a lot of money. It was costing me a lot of time, and I was frustrated. And I had to sort of sit down and really give that a good think. And that's where all the evidence, all the fingers that I saw were sort of pointing at me. Because I mean, it's easy to blame circumstances, blame the recruiters, blame the salespeople.
Totally.
And of course, I did that in the beginning. I said, I've been so unlucky. I must have hired the wrong people or hired the wrong recruiters. But then I realized, well, actually, I'm the problem because I was making decisions based on assumptions that I found out were just plainly wrong. So I think the insight I had was not only was I the problem, but the deeper problem was assumptions that I was making about selling in general and then salespeople. Yeah, that was a pretty painful, I guess, insight because I couldn't just continue doing what I was doing. I had to do something quite differently. And that ended up in me trying to figure out how we can codify behaviors, how we can help salespeople and managers do the right things at the right time with the right people, et cetera, et cetera.
That's brilliant. And in terms of accompanying that change that you did you have to do something with your team that was different? Did you have to almost codify your change of behavior in the next steps? Talk us through that piece.
Yeah, definitely. I was trying to find a gap between what I was doing, and I actually had my youngest brother employed or engaged in the company at that time, and he was brilliant. He could sell these solutions in a great way. I was able to do so as well, but the salespeople weren't. So we were trying to find the gap there. I mean, what are we doing that makes this work compared to what they are doing that does not work? And by doing so, I found that there were some things that were very obvious. And one of those was that in order to sell the product, you had to engage all the people at the customer side who were going to get affected by that change. And in the beginning, we didn't really realize how big of a change that was. So we were pitching it as, if you do this, if you invest in this platform, you automate a lot of the work you're doing manually, you're going to be more profitable. And that resonates, of course, with a company owner, leader, CEO, salesperson, sales leader, etc. But the tech people got really afraid because they were thinking, oh, okay, leadership is going to invest in automation, so I'm going to lose my job. And unless you really handle that well and embrace that sort of fear and tackle that fear and talk to these technical people in their language, the deals were dead in the water. So that was one of those gaps that I found. My brother and I were engaging the tech people in a way that made them comfortable, that the change was not going to lead to them losing their jobs, but actually was going to lead to them getting a more fun job because they no longer had to do those boring tasks that the computers and the automation system could do for them. But the people, we didn't teach them and coach them and provide them with the tools and resources they needed to have those dialogues. So they just ignored the tech people. Like, I don't feel comfortable talking to them. The tech guys are so weird. I have no idea how to have a conversation with them. And they even lied, like, to us. Yeah, I've talked to them, but they hadn't. So I actually, one of the codified ideas I had early on was just to pinpoint this particular problem. Like, if we can just solve this, if we can make sure that we always are having these discussions in a good way, that's going to make a big difference. So we really honed in on that, and that really helped.
One of the narratives that was running through my mind when you talk about you and your brother being able to do it, but the hired salespeople being less effective, speaks to, as you use the word, engagement, and the willingness to learn what you need to learn, to do whatever it takes to get the deal done. Of course, there's the paycheck and motivations and incentives that you do, and you kind of think, well, if I give them an extra 100 kroner, then they're going to sell more, and you link that down, and that will to a degree work, but the willingness and that engagement, that energy, comes from you and your brother incarnating your initiative somehow. And so the question I have, which is something that you full on address within the book, which is the notion of purpose and that commitment to the idea, where you're full in.
Mm-hmm.
You're prepared to cut blood and make this happen because you are committed to the big idea. So really, maybe the respond to that, and then I'll talk about purpose afterwards.
Yes, that's a good point. We were at the point this happens. This was, I think, 2006. So it's a long time now ago, but we saw ourselves as being at the forefront of helping these companies move from being break-fix IT resellers to becoming managed service providers, which was sort of the term that we wanted them to embrace. And we led this change, and we were almost like what's the word? Yeah, ambassadors, or what was Jesus called? He was a someone who stands and talks about something new.
Proselytizer.
So anyway, prophets. I mean, we were sort of relaying this new idea, right? And we I think that was a big purpose that we found purpose in that. Like, we're changing an industry. It's more than just selling a product. But I think the salespeople might not have. We have, and I shouldn't say the salespeople because it sounds like I'm making excuses. We didn't get them maybe full on to buy into that, because we were maybe talking too much about the product and how fantastic the product was and how you could automate stuff, which probably led to them talking too much about the product and too little about this transformation into another business model, which was the real thing we were selling.
That's marvelous. I think that's a big profit, a big purpose, and I love the fact that you can explicit that, because so often when I'm talking about purpose, it always seems to have to be about saving Africa or doing big humanitarian things, and purpose doesn't have to be that big. Transforming an industry, which can be, for example, needle makers or whatever. And turning needle makers into the tapestry of sewing, or something like that. All of a sudden, you're helping people sew better around the world. Oh, that's a bigger deal than just selling another bloody needle. How good is your needle? Well, it pricks,
Yes.
But I love that kind of purpose, George. It really speaks to me. And now you're on another mission.
Yes.
So talk us through your new idea, not new because you've been doing it for a while,
Yeah.
but it seems to me with regard to customer relationship management,
Uh-huh.
CRM,
Yeah.
you have another purpose, another mission.
Yes, I did land in this when we came to that conclusion that we needed to really guide the salespeople in a different way and codify how they needed to engage with customers. Of course, the tool salespeople use is usually the CRM system, as you mentioned, and we were using one at the time that was just not good for that purpose to guide salespeople. It's really a tool, and it still is, which is why I find the mission we're on now is to be so engaging. It's more of a tool to log what you've done, right? You assume that the salesperson knows what to do, and they should just log what they've done, so we can see if they've done enough, and bash them on their head if they haven't. So it's really a managerial data tool. And that struck me as a big problem back then. So I went to other CRM vendors and said, hey, really, I want more. I need more than a database. I need something that drives behaviors. I need something that elevates my salespeople. I need something that I can look at to coach my salespeople, to know who needs help about what and when. And they just looked at me like in a strange way, saying, well, I mean, we haven't really thought about it like that, but you can always customize our CRM. Just bring in a system integrator and they'll help you with that. And being in software from
Cha-ching, cha-ching,
yeah, cha-ching,
cha-ching.
cha-ching. I knew that's like digging a big hole and you throw all your money into it, and as soon as they make a big update, it all breaks. And then I engaged a lot with other sales leaders, company founders in different networks, and sort of started asking around, like, how are you doing these things? Have you moved into a more complex sales environment where these things are problematic and how you sell becomes very important? And they were all saying the same things. Yeah, we're in the same boat. We're seeing the same things. It's challenging. And so, what tooling do you have? And everyone's like, yeah, we're using the CRM. Oh, is that helpful? No, it's not, but that's what we've got. And we've done some tweaking and etc. So I really came back to this conclusion of changing this already back then, but it took me a few years to sort of dive in and create a company based on this. So now we're doing we're building this new type of product, and I didn't want to use the word CRM for so many years, but that's what people have. That's the sort of box people have in their head when they think about salespeople and a system. Oh, the CRM. So we've built a CRM, but we've put on top of the CRM, if we sort of look at CRM just as a database, all the workflows. Like, what are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to do it in an efficient and effective way that also help the managers to be able to coach and help and support? So it's really, we're trying to put the how to sell into a system. And we're not trying to do it ourselves, because I don't believe that a system is going to help salespeople elevate to the next level by itself. We also need skills, coaching, strategies, and for that we need sales development experts, sales trainers, sales consultants, management consultants. So we're teaming up with them and building sort of a network of experts who can then provide the strategies, provide the skills development, provide the coaching, and use the system we're building to make that happen in daily operations. And the mission is to elevate the sales profession, because I think selling has a lot of work, has a lot of improvements that has to happen to it.
It's a fascinating thing you write or you say in your book at one point, that the sales métier is one of the last professions not to be updated, or it's been a long time since it's gone through an update. And it's true that I still have in my mind very much that image of that secondhand car dealer type salesperson who is scurrying around full of good energy and intention, going after the bonus and selling in no matter what, because that's what they've been told to do. like a bull in a china shop. You just forgot to tell them not to, don't run over the china. Oh, okay. So they're not equipped. And then when you look at the way people recruit, typically in sales in particular, well, must have industry experience. So the question I have for you, and you can even look at it with regard to your own team, but with regard to this whole process, how do you hire the right salespeople?
Mm.
How do you identify them? Because
Yeah.
if you're not looking for people with experience, because they know the industry inside out, all right, that's one type of skill, one type of knowledge. Sorry. The question then becomes that if they're from without the industry, then what are you looking for?
Mm. You have to tie it back to the way your buyers buy and how you need to sort of align to that to help them buy, which is selling. I mean, selling is helping someone come to a decision that includes and benefits both you and them. And if you're, and this was one of the big insights as well. Selling is not selling, right? People talk about selling as if it's one type of thing, and selling a used car or chewing gum is very different from selling an airplane, right? So it's sort of the complexities on a large scale, and that's what I think people miss. That they believe, and we have assumption that sellers are in a particular way, like they are hungry, they're competitive, they won't take no for an answer, they can sell snow to Eskimos, all these yeah, pretty dumb ideas we have about selling, because in a complex sales environment where you're selling something that is maybe tailored to the buyer, maybe even a service, you can't see anything, you can't touch anything, you have to convince the buyer that you're the one that can help them get to that next level. You need other traits, right? You need someone who can really understand that client. And maybe industry expertise is super critical for that, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's easily taught how the industry works. And what's more important might be that you are a very intelligent person that can find solutions to problems that customers have, and you can relate to people in a way, and you can organize and structure almost like a conductor how this decision making path will happen. So depending on the type of complexity, I think you have to really understand that well before you know who you can recruit. And that's where I think a lot of leaders make mistakes, because we try to find this, we have this incorrect image of a salesperson.
Well, I can certainly speak from the small experience I had. Well, at least small, because it was very specific, which is selling shampoos to hairdressers. And you don't need experience in that. Sure, you need to learn about chemicals and how they impact the hair. And some of them do have, real allergies and issues. But for the rest, it really is about humanity. And I think that especially in B2B relationships, the notion of trust at a human to human level is vital. And of course, you could sort of know the industry and you can know some of the codes and language, but trust goes deeper than that. And so often just being able to sort of move into that other profile, what we're looking for, you said the word intelligence, challenges, that's a very wide concept, and you can be intelligent in certain areas and not others, but finding an attitude that has that conductor attitude, which includes the fact that I may not know everything, which conductors are not known for.
Right.
So the conductor is sort of the chief and knows how to play the viola, the violin, the tuba, the bassoon kind of feeling, because that's what he or she is managing everything. At some level, I think that you also need to be able to say, I don't know this. How can I go get that information to compensate for me? How can I collaborate and not come off as a know-it-all?
Yeah.
And then I'm more in a solution-based mind with regard to my client, because they're trying to do, which is what I think you're up to, which is change. You're bringing in a system that actually fundamentally is designed to change the way they operate. So the transformation you have is because of the tool, but in order for the tool to work, they need to change. So that requires a deep amount of trust and relationship with you or the individual who's selling it in to want to listen to your advice and then go seek the way that you're going to have to adapt to get that sales tool to work.
It's interesting when you were talking about trust, and I am a strong believer in that. I wrote about my little framework that I have in my mind called Trust, Align, Grow. I think you have to have that foundation of trust, and then you have to be able to align with each other. Like if you're in a relationship and the other person doesn't want to have children, and that's your biggest dream in life, you're not in alignment, so you'll better get into alignment or maybe go separate ways. And the same in business, right? If I cannot help you with what you're trying to accomplish, when I should just walk away and maybe recommend my competitor who can help you. But I think it's a difficult thing with trust in the times we're living in, because everything is moving so quickly, and we have our attention spans are just shrinking all the time. So people just want to fix their problem in the shortest amount of time possible. So I find it to be kind of a problem for us humans today, that sometimes we don't take the time needed to really think about things. We just go fix it in the easiest possible way, which probably leads to the problem not being fixed. It leads to another problem. And then we fix that in a quick way, and all of a sudden we have just made the whole problem bigger, because we don't just slow down, think, and maybe build these relationships based on trust. Because I think buyers are also treating sellers in a way sometimes, and maybe sellers have themselves to blame, because we have this used car salesmen who have treated buyers poorly. But sometimes buyers also treat sellers poorly in a way that is not justified. They scout for pricing, they don't go deep enough, they set criteria that are not in their best interest, and not willing to listen to insights that sellers may come with, for different reasons. So I'm seeing, and the whole the quarterly economy we're living in, everything is so short-sighted, that I'm a bit frustrated with that, I must say. It's become more difficult from my view and my perception to build these relationships based on trust, because sometimes there's just no time, nor perceived time, to go there. It's like, just say what you have, give me your price, and I'm going to move on with my life.
One of the things that you mentioned, and I really latched onto it because I found it quite powerful, George, was when you say or ask the question, will my customers be willing to pay for the advice that my sales team is providing? So that's just, forget about the product I'm selling, but is the manner in which I deliver advice, the surround sound service to the product, is that payable? Is it something that's so value added? So in other words, we're not just flogging features and benefits. We're really into the mode of being in your shoes and helping you with the integration and the success towards your targets. I mean, because that's valuable.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a great statement. Of course, the challenge is making that come alive. Any ideas, tips, hints as to making that?
It gets me thinking of a call I had the other week with a fellow Swedish entrepreneur who scaled his company quickly, brought in a lot of VC money, and they scaled in the US a lot, and they just
Of course,
did
it's
that.
not called Spotify, right?
No, that's another story. But these guys made it sold B2B, so it was pretty hands-on selling, right? They had salespeople visiting customers and calling on customers. But if you hire a few hundred salespeople at one, just instantly in a very short time frame, he shared the story how they were, before this happened, they were always the vendor who came to a customer and shared new insights. They were so knowledgeable about their niche market and the product they were providing. And they had almost this idea, like, and the quote you mentioned there is actually not mine. It's from Neil Rackham, who wrote Spin Selling. And so they had latched onto that idea that if we leave the meeting, we don't care if the customer buys our product or not, but they should be thinking, wow, this was a great meeting. I learned something from this meeting. It wasn't just a sales meeting. But when they started recruiting hundreds of salespeople and weren't maybe as thorough with the onboarding that they had been in the past, he would get calls saying, I just met one of your sales guys, and it was not a pleasant meeting. They just wanted to pitch me something, and they didn't even know my business. They didn't ask any questions. They were just running into a pitch. What's happened?
Mhm.
So definitely think we have to, as salespeople, if we're in a complex B2B sale and there is room for taking such a sort of a consultative approach, to be that consultant that provides value. And that's hard. That's hard, and it requires work, and it requires each salesperson to be sort of elevate their game and go a lot beyond or just pitching a product. But I think that's the right mindset to have.
It strikes me that a fundament to your approach, George, is machine and human, because you just can't have an AI do everything. And the idea before is that you were sort of making a human do everything and just logging it before.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're sort of at the coal mine together,
Mm-hmm.
and the machine is informing me, helping me in the how of the sales. So it's this combination that could hopefully augment average salespeople, because if you can move the average up, as you talk about in your book a lot about the different profiles of salespeople, if you can help on average move it up, then the question becomes aligning to what you're promising.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you promise the moon and you get little, fireworks,
Yeah.
nice, but not good enough. It's not the moon, like you were
Right.
just talking about in your
Yeah.
example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why the product is called Membrain, because it's like you got the memory part, you need the database, but where's the brain? I mean, where's the intelligence? Where's the guidance? Where's the Sherpa that guides me towards my goals? And I love AI, I love technology, but I think if you look at selling, a lot of sales teams aren't even doing the basic stuff right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you prepare for a meeting? How do you do research? What questions it was? What's your messaging? What's your positioning? Basic things that a company should have figured out isn't always done correctly. So the person who codifies your way of selling is usually a human, right? And once so that human puts the way of selling in to the system, and then the system can help guide people through that, and then provide you with insights. Oh, this is working, or this is not working. Why are we not meeting with a CFO early on if that doubles our win rate? Let's put that into the codification of our selling, and you just continually improve and iterate how you go about selling. It should be a process, but it hasn't been in the past. It's been sort of, well, you hire the right person who was a born salesperson, and off they go, and you become successful.
So somewhere it feels for me that you, with the idea of purpose in the process, try to make sure that the salesperson always has an eye on the purpose. And that needs to be reiterated, sometimes integrated into the pitch, but not too much, because then you can get the situation that you just had before a little bit, where
Mm,
this great, the consultants come in, but they're not so consultancy
mm,
anymore. I wanted to get in the last few moments that we have together. I wanted to talk about a fact that you, in your book, you write a lot about the medical profession, which I found rather interesting. And you cite Atul Gawande, who wrote Being Mortal, a book I think that everybody should read as they face the departure of their parents. I think it's a very interesting book about mortality. But you talk a lot about the medical business, and you even put together pilots, surgeons, and salespeople. So I was just wondering what was inside George's mind as he, does he had a father that was a doctor? How did the medical profession become so present? That was the feeling that I had. That was the filter that Minter took away from listening to your book.
Okay, yeah, it was actually the book, The Checklist Manifesto, that Atul Gawande wrote, which I found to be so relevant for the sales profession as well. And he communicates in that book, where he writes about how he and his team were approached to figure out a way to reduce the complications after surgery, because a lot of people die or get crippled. And they realized that usually it's because of human error. Someone makes a mistake. And he was trying to figure out how to solve that. And the first sort of reaction was, well, they need more training. But they realized that surgeons are usually quite well trained and they have a lot of experience. So it's more mistakes and sloppiness and procedures and processes that don't work. So they went out to look at other professions. So they went to the pilots and found how they use checklists, and construction. In the construction industry, you do the same. And they brought that back to surgeons, saying, hey, let's introduce a checklist to reduce complications. And everyone's like, no way. I've been a surgeon for 25 years. I don't need a checklist, et cetera, et cetera. So that was how I came sort of to that analogy in sales, that if you do a surgery on a person who's lying there, they're lying still on the table, and it takes an hour, and you've been trained to do it well, you've done it 100 times, that's maybe easier in a way than to sell something in B2B with a sales cycle of 9 months, and you have to engage, I don't know, 10 different stakeholders, maybe on different continents, and get them all to agree on something. But the salespeople, they're just assumed to go about that and know what to do and with whom. I introduced this metaphor or analogy to basically lower the guard for salespeople and sales managers who also think, well, I don't need no checklist. I have been a salesperson I know my thing. It's like, no, you don't, because I can't even go grocery shopping without a checklist. I'm going to forget the milk, and I'm going to be sent back to the store because my wife is going to be upset. So how are you supposed to know everything you're going to do in a 9 months project with all these people involved? It's just open up to the idea that you might need assistance.
So I couldn't help but think about my father, and hopefully I'll get him to listen to this one. He ran a hospital for 30 years, and he was also a pilot, and also was a salesperson in his past. And
Right.
And here's the thing: Atul Gawande could have taken from the pilots, because at the end of my father's checklist, he'd get us Jepson, which is basically the maps, and at the bottom of the checklist was kiss the co-pilot if appropriate.
Okay.
And I think that would be a winner for getting checklists to be acceptable, right?
Kiss the customer.
Yeah.
If
Well,
applicable.
yeah, I'm reading a new book about love in the workplace, and it's a tricky space. I want to finish on the one last thing which you talk about, which I thought was really charming and useful, which is the power of beauty and enjoyment. And tell us why you wrote that, because in a CRM, a customer sales, AI, machines, beauty and enjoyment, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always loved beautiful things, and I just felt that in technology, it's not been really embraced. That changed with Steve Jobs and the iPhone, and he really did a lot to change that, I think. And we're in a better place now than we were 10, 20 years ago. But these CRM systems are just horrible, or the ERP, where you create invoices, and I mean, they're even worse.
Mhm.
Uh, it's not something you feel happy when you log on to, and I think that's a part of why a lot of salespeople hate their CRMs because they're just ugly. And they're in your way. They're sort of, oh, I have to go do something in my system, but I have to click 14 times to get there, and it opens 14 different windows, and I just can get confused. Also, there's just lists everywhere, and text is fine. And as a coder, I think that programmers who might have been a bit too involved in designing these systems, they wanted, I want a fact. I want the facts. Give me the list. I love lists. Whereas a salesperson or someone who's trying to accomplish something with a client, I think might resonate more with the visuals. So how can we make these tools more visual and beautiful and have people actually want to log on to their system in the morning and see what's there and make that a pleasant experience. And that's a big challenge, of course, because it is in part data we're working with here. So we have to have the data piece, memory piece, but also the brain piece, and how to interweave these and how to put also skills development, training. I'm a big believer that we have to sort of learn in the process of working. So we put a lot of like training content inside of workflows that also needs to look good. Like, oh, here's a video that explains to me how I should be talking to those tech people that I hate to talk to. That's neat. I want to see that. Now I grew a little bit by the way the system is designed. So yeah, I do think we need to put a lot of loving into how we design things.
And which, of course, dovetails absolutely into my book, in Artificial Empathy. I talk about empathy, not just in how to deal with a customer, but even in the way you brief the coder. Yep. And that empathy is something that is fluid, needs to be fluid and consistent somehow with what you're trying to do at the end. And having empathy to think about the salesperson's journey, their stresses, their realities. Maybe they're not geeks, maybe they don't like to read lists. And how do you use that empathy to make for a better system? George, we could clearly have gone on for a few more hours. In the interest of time, we have to close, I'm afraid. So tell us how people can come up, understand Membrain. How is it? BRANE or BRAIN? Tell us how to track you down.
Like the brain inside of our heads. So MEMBRAIN.com. So go. I write a blog, and it's called The Art and Science of Complex Sales. You can find that on membrain.com/blog. So please subscribe to that. And if you want to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn, quite active there, and I have a strange last name, so I'm easy to find.
Well, it's sort of easy if you don't worry about the accent on the E. Brontén, yeah. Brontén. I'll put all those in the show notes. George, thanks for coming on the show. Good luck continuing to change this beautiful sales profession that we have all been participating in, and look forward to staying in touch.
Me too. Thanks for having me on your show.
Thanks for having listened to this recording of the Minter Dialogue Show. You'll find the show notes and other blog posts on minterdial.com. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to iTunes to give a rating and review. And to finish, here's a song I wrote with Stephanie Singer, A Convinced Man.
Stranger tucked around me, precipitating the danger. To feel free, trust is the reason. Still, I won't tell the lie. I sit here passively, hope for your respect, anticipating the thrill of your intellect. Maybe I tell myself there's no use in me lying. I'm a convinced man, building an urge. I'm a convinced man, to live and die submerged. A convinced man, in the arms of a woman. I'm a convinced man, challenge my fate. and struggle to see. Live for the challenge so life's not incomplete. What's wrong with challenge? I know soon we all die. I like the feel of a stranger tucked around me, precipitating the danger to feel free. Trust in my reason and let me show you why.